Well, hello, everybody. My name is Brad Stine. I'm God's comic, and this is Brad Stine Has Issues, where comedy, conservatism, and Christianity collide in a cacophony of clarity. Tonight, we have a very special guest. He's very jacked, which means he's really strong and ripped. And his name is Marc Lobliner. That's right, Lobliner. And he's interesting in his life, how he sees the world, what he's all about, how he goes about his day as an American, and what he's accomplished or is still trying to accomplish will all be explored today under Brad Stine Has Issues. I'm a little under the, I don't want to say under the weather. I don't think that is what I want to say. I did want to say, and that I stopped myself, and I'll tell you why. Number one, because I am I believe in free agency. So in other words, I believe that I am not determined, that I actually can, in fact, make my own decisions. So I chose not to say I was under the weather, first, because I can. But then secondly, I chose not to say I was under the weather because I'm not. That's not really the word I wanted to use. Under the weather references people who are sick, right, or sickly. And if you think about that, every human being is under the weather because the weather's on top of us. Like, for example, if it rains. Well, why, you know this. Have you ever been on site and it was raining from the ground up?
No.
Yeah. Have you ever been where the clouds seeped up through the street and kind of
No.
position? Yeah. Have you ever seen a thunderstorm that occurred in the sewer system?
No.
Yeah. So have you ever seen a heat wave that you didn't feel because it was happening in the core of the earth?
No.
Yeah. So apparently the weather is higher than us. It's, I guess a case could be made that we're in the midst of the weather. We're kind of engulfed in it. But for the most part, the weather is above us.
Counterpoint. Airplane.
But guess what? If you're in an airplane,
Every single person who is currently flying in an airplane is above the weather.
no, because you can be in a storm that's at 50,000 feet, and if you're only 35,000 feet, then there's a high storm.
Yeah, but what about all the clouds that are lower than 35,000?
Yeah, they're
feet?
above that that weather.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just saying. This wasn't the best analogy you could have used.
All right, so let's just pretend that long before airplanes were invented.
Long before the Wright brothers invented flying.
Right. But don't you think that under the weather, the etymology for that must be interesting because
I think, so this is just something I'm thinking of right now, but I think the original saying of under the weather was more like under the effects of the weather. Because you usually get colds and sicknesses when it's bad weather out, like when it's rainy or it's cold. Mm-hmm. Even though that's not technically a correlation,
no.
Back then, those guys didn't know anything.
No.
They didn't know how to fly, much less about like...
And they didn't have rubber gloves.
No. Or antibacterial napkins.
That's right.
So like they were...
Or Velcro.
Or Velcro, or duct tape.
Yes, or duct taped Velcro.
Like, honestly, how did we as a species survive before duct tape?
I don't know.
How else did we tape our ducks?
I think what we did was we took strips of bark from the birch tree and slathered it in honey. So it was a crude version of a duct tape.
No. You're thinking of the adhesive bandage invention. Oh. Yeah. I believe they call it a pellets that they used instead of honey. Yeah. But that's advanced caveman talk. So,
Well, I thought advanced caveman talk was ugh, me Thor.
No. Advanced caveman talk is ooga booga. Because that's 2 syllables instead of 1.
That's true. Well, that's when they really began to just push the end.
That was the first major evolution of speech, was the invention of the second syllable.
Right. And it was crucial because they couldn't use the word syllable yet.
Yeah, exactly. That came 100 years later.
Well, they had to because it was 3 syllables, and it's like we can't even start even defining this word if we don't have a word for the word.
It's like, guys, come on. We just discovered 2 syllables. You mean to tell me that there's more of them out there?
Why don't we stop? And why should we? You know, did you think that maybe it's possible that every word we ever invented didn't have to have 2 syllables? I mean, think about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Think, it. I just said 3 things. 3 about it, that's 2. But think and it are 1.
Yeah.
So there's lots of 1-syllable words. And if you were to say about, why couldn't we just say think about it? Let's say we just didn't add the ab. So my point is that any of the multi-syllabic words didn't have to be. Did they?
No.
Can't you have a single syllabic culture of nomenclature?
Absolutely. I mean, look, there are some pretty big words that are 1 syllable, like scraunched and strength. Those are the longest 1-syllable words. Those are like
scraunched.
I don't know what it means, but I just looked this up on Google.
Oh, Wyatt, I was going to hope that you were going to say, you know, I just remember during my reading and research over the years, and you don't ever want to say, I just looked at it. You want to say, you know, I seem to recall in my metaphysics class that scraunched.
I knew what squanched the word is. I just didn't think that it was a 1-syllable word because it seemed too long. But I knew what the word was.
What is the word?
Squanched is like sort of scrunched up, sort of
like scrunched.
Yeah, scrunched. Yeah.
Or do you mean scrunched?
Scrunched
or scrunched?
Scrunched.
Scrunched.
Scrunched. 1 syllable.
You said squanched.
I said squanched, scrunched, scrunched. I said all of it.
You did say squanched, and that wasn't a real word, which is why I was like going, I never heard of squanched. Nevertheless, it's a 1-syllable long word that apparently doesn't exist until now. So you can literally give it a meaning.
Literally, what is stopping me from just inventing a new word?
Like, you know what squanched means?
Squanched means to butcher the pronunciation of a word.
I was going to say squanched means what happens when one doesn't know the meaning of a word. They're squanched.
Like, man, did you hear a professor today? He totally squanched.
Right. Well, I'm just saying he squanched on that lesson, or he completely misused that word. I mean, clearly,
man, that was an epic squanch you did.
Listen, but maybe it is a word because it sounds too good now.
Listen. You don't have to bring me down. You can just admit that I'm really good at making up things.
You are, but the reason that I don't give you full credibility for that is because you do it out of mistaken ignorance of what you thought the word actually was. You were trying to say scrunched. You said squanched.
And listen, do you have any idea?
And then you said, and I looked it up on the internet.
Have any idea how many scientific breakthroughs happened by complete accident?
Lots.
Yeah, exactly. I am not I didn't screw it up. I'm a pioneer. I'm like them.
Okay.
I messed up, but I capitalized on it for profit.
Well, I know of one, which was the guy had a chocolate bar in his jacket, and he was trying to learn about microwaves and learn. I don't know if it was to use it for energy. I don't know what they were trying to experiment with.
I thought it was a radar relay that he was going past, and that it melted his chocolate bar, and it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, and it was because of microwaves.
It was because the microwaves just so happens to be at the same frequency as water molecules, which is how microwaves work.
But don't you love the fact that this is the American, well, I was going to say American ingenuity, and that certainly is legit, but it's human ingenuity, obviously, because people have been inventing things long before.
But it does bring the question up, if that didn't happen, like if the first time an accidental discovery was discovered didn't happen, how long do you think it would have been before it was? Because nowadays we try to do things more like intentionally. Accidental. What? Oh, yeah. Thanks for interrupting my brilliant.
No, it was brilliant. Can you just go quickly make a quick tell Macy?
Yeah.
Sorry,
audience. Apparently, other people exist in this household. I'll be right back.
Yeah, he'll be right back. Listen here. Let's go further about squanch though, because folks, if you ever think about it, any type of word can be made or stopped based on your own ingenuity. And it's just, I think it's interesting that we have taken what used to be free speech, what used to be this real access to all words, and we've lost the sense of what you would call uh, context. In other words, I don't know. We have a false, just a false perimeter that we are now creating about words as to why they are or are not allowed to be spoken in public or in mixed company. And some of those words, of course, are epithets. So they're, what we would call swear words, or uh, um, what would be the other term for that? Because swear is very specifically you're putting a swear upon, or a swear word, or a damning word. So these are blasphemous contexts. Go to hell, for example, is literally a curse. That's why we get the word curse words, because you're cursing someone. Go to hell, you're sending them to eternal oblivion. So it's a curse. So that's where that weight came from. But I was thinking about just the idea of when we have decided that certain words, you can't even mention them in the context of discussing them. You bleep out the word, and you're in a situation where we said, yeah, blah, blah, and you bleep it out because you're trying to be, I guess, a civil, right? And there's certain particular words that are expected to be used and not used, but you allow the word to be uttered and you bleep it, which means we all know what was said. So how is it more ethical or civil or polite or decorum to allow somebody to say, zip, beep, and you didn't hear them say it, but you know what they said, so it's still in your head. Whether they said it or didn't say it, you know exactly what was said. Either way. So what's the difference? Why the bleep?
I think you're thinking of it the wrong way.
All right.
I don't think bleeping curse words is meant to make it so you don't know what they said, if you know what they said. It's for the people who don't instinctually know, like maybe younger people who aren't quite used to those words.
So like you're hiding it from children.
Yeah, but obviously it's going to do basically, it's the equivalent of just putting a sheet over like a block and saying, where'd it go? The kids are going to be like, it disappeared. But the adult's going to be like, it's just open the thing.
Well, if you're really a young child, the bleep, it just goes over your head because you're not really even paying attention anyways.
Well, I'm not talking about like babies or anything. I'm talking about like 6, 7, 8, where like they can talk.
But don't you think in a way that will make them more curious? Like, why did that go beep, Mommy?
Yeah, and
what do you say?
Yeah, and that's when parents get to do the best part about parenting.
Which is?
Lie to your kids.
Well, he said a nasty word. And these are words we don't want you to say.
No, you see, he actually said bleep. That's the word he said. Yeah, it's a weird dialect they have over there in TV land.
And someday you're going to learn, son, how to go.
Yes, and it will be annoying. Trust me.
Well, I was wondering about the idea, in this whole setup started with me going to use the phrase under the weather. And then I thought to myself, it just occurred to me as I spoke, everybody's under the weather. Everybody's under the weather. Or, well, okay, so maybe what we didn't discern and should have, Wyatt, and I'm sure this is gripping commentary. I mean, do you think that people are calling their friends? You've got to get on this. Are you watching Brad Stine Has Issues? You will not believe what they are unpacking today.
That's right. Keep talking. We've only got 25 minutes left until we hit that 40-minute mark.
Okay. Well, listen, here's the deal.
I don't know if we're going to 40 minutes. I'm just saying.
But here's what I was thinking about, though. And again, it's just the type of thing that you and I have always done. We just like to sort of talk about ideas and see where we land. But what is weather? Is weather the atmosphere? And weather simply references the temperature of the atmosphere. So
Well,
it's
I don't
hot
know.
out, it's
Well,
cold out, it's snowing out. But what is really weather talking about? Is it talking
well,
about the way the atmosphere is interacting molecularly? Is that what it's really saying?
I don't know whether or not that makes a difference.
Mm.
But but yeah, basically, weather is the a combination of factors like temperature, barometric pressure, and other mostly wind related things actually. Because like think of how many weather related things involve wind. We got wind, of course, tornadoes, hurricanes. I guess you can count fire, I guess, because I said so. And yeah, that's all I can think of.
Well, a
So yeah,
thunderstorm, a
yeah,
torrential
yeah.
rainstorm is driven by wind.
Hmm.
So, but here's my point, though, son. If weather is essentially just a code word for how the atmosphere is behaving, then we not only are we literally not under the weather, we're inside it. Like
Yeah.
there's,
It all encompasses
we're
us. Yeah.
inside the weather right now. What do you call this environment that we are in right now? This space that I happen to sit. I mean, I'm not talking about you're in a house, you're in your studio. I'm not talking about you're on a desk. I'm talking about what am I in on the meta level? What encompasses me? It's the atmosphere, right? That's what you'd call
Yeah,
it, an
yeah.
atmosphere,
Hmm.
because as you scuba dive, and you go down, you double you add atmospheres to it as you get deeper and deeper. I forget where the breaks are now. I used to know. Did you know I was a certified scuba diver once?
Actually, yes, I think you've told me about that.
I was. You know where I learned to scuba dive?
In the atmosphere.
Well, it was, but it was in a thick atmosphere known as the ocean.
Ah, yes, the maple syrup of
Yeah,
atmospheres.
it was, and it was mapley, but it was in Grand Cayman Islands. So I was in the Grand Caymans, which is, by the way, if you're going to scuba dive, my friend, this is the place you want to do it. It was the visibility, 100%. In other words, it was like swimming in your pool or in a fish bowl, but you're in the ocean. So you see every fish, you see every coral, it was ridiculous. And it was so warm that all I needed was my BC, which is a buoyancy compensator, and, my tanks and my fins and so forth. But I didn't have a wetsuit. I was just in my bathing suit and putting on my stuff, and off I go. So it was crazy. And did I ever tell you the story of almost or potentially could have drowned?
No, that one's a new one.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a new one.
All right, so let me tell you this story. It just reminded me when we said atmosphere.
Yes, atmosphere. That reminds me of the time I almost died.
No, I almost died. Well, and if you think about it,
To be fair, 100% of all people who have died throughout all human history did it in an atmosphere.
that's what I was getting at.
Yep.
Now, sometimes that atmosphere can be a little bit more dynamic. For example, those guys that went down in that submarine trying to see the Titanic.
I wouldn't call that dynamic so much as instantaneous.
Woo-hoo. Boom. Ouch. But, all right, so here's what happened. I learned to scuba dive. Now, to learn to scuba dive, you have to do pass a certain amount of things, and you got to know how to use your, all of you. And it's been so long now, I've forgotten everything, as you can tell. But you have your altimeter, I think, to let you know how deep you're going, because you got to know how deep you are. And you have to understand something, that as you go deeper and deeper down in the ocean, there's pressure on you, and that pressure begins to squeeze your body, your cells together. And nitrogen, I believe it's nitrogen, which we expel. We suck in oxygen and we expel nitrogen, right? It gets trapped. It usually just expels as we are going about our day to day, but it gets trapped inside of there. And it shrinks it down. And so when you come up and it begins to open up and it loosens and allows everything that had been scrunched to unscrunch, you have to wait at certain levels, depending on how deep you were, for a certain amount of time to allow the nitrogen a chance to escape through your cells. If, on the other hand, you went down deep and then burst up to the top as quickly as you can, so you had all that pressure, and then it went released like that, and these bubbles never got a chance to be eliminated from your skin, you would get what they call the bends. You ever heard of the bends? The bends?
Yeah, it's when nitrogen in your blood decides to make your whole body decide to just stop.
It's bad shape. Yeah, you got to end up in. They put you in a barometric pressure.
Yeah, they got to depressurize you the correct way.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, so it matters that you do it right. All right. There's another term that there was a famous French guy, a scuba diver, very famous, named Jacques Cousteau. Do you ever remember that name? Ever heard of that name?
Oh, that sounds so familiar.
Well, anyways,
I thought it was a fictional name, though.
No, he used to have specials on all the time about the wonderful world or the undersea world of Jacques Cousteau, and he was a French guy, and I believe he and some other friends are the guys that invented scuba gear. You know what scuba stands for?
I know it's an acronym. It's like
not scrunch.
I got. Dang it! You took my joke. I can't think.
Stands for self-contained underwater breathing apparatus.
It was the self part that I couldn't remember. Yeah. Of every single word in that combination, you would think the 4-letter one would be the one I remembered.
Right, especially because it's one syllable. So again, we're going full circle. But here's the deal. So if you go deep, the nitrogen that needs to escape slowly and safely to allow you not to get bent, which can kill you, by the way, if you don't get it fixed, as you go deep and stay down there, that nitrogen stays into your bloodstream, and you can also get narcosis, nitrogen narcosis, or as they say in the scuba world,
the bends.
You got no. That's not it.
Oh,
the bends is the bends. The nitrogen narcosis is called getting narked. It is a euphoria.
Yeah.
So this nitrogen gets in your body, and Jacques used to call it the raptures of the deep.
You know, that's actually sort of a thing that's happening nowadays. Is there's this trend. I'm not sure if it's still a thing, but there was a trend when kids would get nitrous oxide canisters and huff them, which basically created the anarcosis.
Yeah.
Because the nitrogen displaced the oxygen into their brains, and it's a really dumb thing to do. Don't do it, and everybody does it.
I know you didn't, because you've never done a drug in your life.
No, I have not.
But here's the deal. So people that scuba dive all the time, they get narked every now and again, especially if you go down it, and a lot of it has to do with your body weight, and because just like with drinking or whatever, depending on how much body weight and dispersion of the alcohol in your bloodstream, or then some people can hold it off longer than others, whatever. So I would leave the Cayman Islands and I would go do my life, and then I'd come back to Cayman Islands because there was a comedy club there. There was a Coconuts Comedy Club there in Cayman Islands. Had a great time. I used to love to go there. And I got my certification. So when I would come back, I thought, well, I got to go out and go scuba diving now again. And so there were certain people that lived there on the island that were regulars. One guy I think had won. I think the scuttlebutt was he won the lottery in Canada, so he made a lot of money. He moved to Cayman Islands, so he had a boat and he would go take people scuba diving. And I knew the guy because he'd come to the show. So I said, "Listen, I want to get narked. I've never had it happen. I want to see what it's like. I just want to know what the experience is, so I'll know." It's similar to like when I got choked out in jiu-jitsu. My friend told me you need to get choked out because you need to know what it feels like, and you need to know how quickly it happens so you understand the dynamics of it. And I'm like, Okay, so it's same thing. It's like I want to go and feel nitrogen narcosis so that I can know, oh, that's what that is. And it sounded fun. I mean, they made it sound like the raptures of the deep. You are going to love these rapture of the deep. So I said to the guy, can we do that? And he said, oh, I can get you. Ha ha! I can get you narc. Now, I was certified at that point, I think, for 90 feet. Theoretically, I could go 90 feet is what I was certified. You have to do a different class to go down. And I think for a typical, normal PADI certification, if you do it the next level, I think 120 is like the deepest you go. If you want to go below that, you have to have a much deeper, different training. And some of this deep diving, I think it's a different type of gas that they use. It's not just, it might even be, I don't know, remember if it's a mixture of nitrogen or something. I don't know. Anyways, it's a whole different deal. Those guys that are like welding stuff at 200 feet down at oil rigs, they got a whole different setup going on. Whole different deal. So I had never been narc. Yeah, I'd maybe been 70 feet deep or whatever, which is pretty dang deep. If you've never scuba dived, it sounds crazy. But it's fun, it's beautiful, and so this guy said, let's go. Now, here's the other thing. I told you about nitrogen, getting narc, but I also told you about the bands. So here's how it works. You go down, and you go as deep as you can go, and then you screw around. But then you only have so much time. You have to check your watch. How much air is in my tank? Because the air is being compressed too. And so as you come up, you go about 10 feet, if I remember, and then you stop at 10 feet higher, and you wait for a few minutes. This gives you a chance for your body to kind of get used to this pressure release, and nitrogen begins to enlarge, gets to get out, and then you go up. So you have to go up in stages, which means if you're super deep, you have to time heading back up because you have these way stations you have to stop. And so you have to time that. And so so you don't get bent, you have to make sure you leave in time to give yourself time for, because it might be a 5-minute wait. And if you only got 15 minutes left of air and you got, another 100 feet, you could be in trouble. So what we had to do is we had to bust down. He said, okay, we're going to get in. We're just going to go deep. We're just going to swim hard and deep, get as deep as we want to go. And then we'll start coming up right away. I said, okay, cool. So I start heading down. But now he's filming this, by the way. So it's an underwater camera, so I'm being filmed. So I've got my, again, it's been so many years, altimeter, or is that what you do for going up skydiving? But anyways, so it tells you how deep you're going. You got to have a thing that shows you how deep you are, and it also shows you your gauge, how much air you have. So we jump in, and I start heading down. We're doing just all it is just bust down, get deep. You'll get narked, and then we got to start heading out of here. So I started going. The next thing I know, I'm like, this is kind of fun. I like this. I don't know, feels good. And I see the guy, and he's kind of like filming me, and I'm like, whoo-hoo, and I'm kind of like doing some backflips, and I'm like, it's kind of like you're high. And so it's like, okay, it's cool. And we're going down, and finally at one point he just says, stop. And my gauge only went to 160 feet. And I think I buried the gauge. In other words, it went as far as it can go, and we went beyond. I think he had a digital one, and I think we ended up being about 170 feet deep. How far down we went, which is pretty deep if you're not a professional. I'm getting like, this is cool. I love it. Woo woo, wow, huh. But I could begin to feel this sense of being stoned, I guess. I mean, when I was younger, I tried pot a few times, different things when I was a young guy, just to see, I just want to know what it feels like. And I never liked it. Never was a drug guy at all. Not my temptation, because I hate it. I don't like to be out of control. I don't like to feel like I was a guy that just felt trapped in his body. Get me out of here. I don't want anything to do with it. Well, it felt like that. But the difference is, Wyatt, I'm 170 feet underwater when I'm no longer comfortable in my own skin.
I can see how from whence a problem may arise from that.
Thus, a problem has a very, very potential to arise. So I start kind of heading up like, okay, and I felt the gauge, the thing you breathe through. I have forgotten every term. I mean, I used to do them all the time. Anyways, I forgot, but you're holding it in your mouth, with rubber. And I just remember feeling like, I don't know if I'm holding it good enough. I'm not sure. And it's like, I don't want this thing. It feels constricting. I feel like I can't breathe. And all I could picture is I want my head out of water and I want to go with atmosphere. I don't want this thing, this tiny little thing. I want to just bust out and breathe. So I'm having a panic attack. 170 feet. So I start kind of moving, and finally I started going, I've got to get out of here. I can't do this. I start tearing it out. And I'm going, whoa, 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 whoa. Getting out, I gotta go. I'm looking at, I see it's the Cayman Islands, they have this incredible wall of coral, and I'm seeing that, and I literally am praying, I'm going, Lord, help me. It's like, because I'm losing it. And I'm thinking as I'm busting up there, you're going to get bent. You can't do this. You cannot just tear up there and get out. And I thought, I don't care. I'll deal with that when it comes. I got to get out of here. I can't breathe. And I'm like, and I'm just busting it, and just, God help me. Oh my God. And I'm just trying to grip this thing as tight as I can. My regulator, what it's called, as tight as I can, because I feel like it's going to kind of come out and I'm going to just breathe water and drown. And I finally get to a certain point and I just stop, like, you've got to quit. You can't. You're going to kill yourself. But some of this rapturousness began to dissipate. So I didn't feel quite as weird. And I could kind of just settle in, and I'm okay. And I look at my gauge, and I'm at 70 feet. So I'm still pretty far down. And I look down, and way down there where my partner was, who, by the way, you're supposed to have a buddy with you at all times, he's way down there, and he's looking way up at me. He goes like this. Now, if you're underwater, they have signals. This means, like, are you okay, right? Are you all right? And you can either say, yeah, I'm okay, or you can go, which means I don't know. I'm not great. And I went to him, and he just, and then he just kept swimming around. This Canadian didn't pop up and go, crap, something's wrong with my buddy. I better go make sure what's up. Let's get at it. Well, are you okay? No, you all right? Not really. Okay, I'm staying down here. So I kind of just stayed. He starts coming up at the level, gets about 70. Then he moves up to about 60. So little by little, we start heading out and doing it the right way. And I eventually got out, pull it out, and just breathe the air. But, thank God he saved my life. I could have easily have just completely died, panicked, pulled off my thing, gone crazy. It was not a fun experience. And I just found myself, believe it or not, many times there, because I ended up in Catalina not long after that, and I was swimming. It's cold water, so you have to wear the wetsuits. And they have kelp there, these giant kelp beds that you can swim through in Catalina. And I just started feeling this weird, so I kind of screwed up my ability to scuba dive because I created this panic attack thing in my head that I just couldn't do it anymore because I had synced in this horrible experience that I couldn't get past when I started going underwater and doing things. So it's a terrible experience, but it's like any experience in life, Wyatt. If you survive, it's a great story.
I feel like most stories are that way.
Yes. Now, you don't have those stories. You're not a swimmer. It hurt your ears because you had your adenoids removed when you were young because everybody told us that would help you because you always had ear infections. So we're trying to do the right thing.
To be fair, though, I have not had a single ear infection since then.
That's true. So, who knows if you would have grown out of it? I don't know, man.
Who knows?
All I do know is, nowadays, if a doctor said, yeah, remove some of this child's organs, I'd say, no, I don't believe it. I don't think I'm going to listen to you. Thank you, though, but I no longer believe in your institutions, in your corruption. So here you sit, Wyatt. This is what happens when you no longer believe in people. You know, Wyatt, I'm a little melancholy today. You know why?
I couldn't tell you.
Well, what's not here?
The iPad.
Yeah, and which means what?
There's no iPad though.
Which means, who am I not? How am I? What am I not doing that I've done for 3 years?
I don't know. That could be a lot of things.
Saying hi to everybody.
Oh, but that was kind of your fault.
Talking to them and everything. And
you could have done that at any point in time. You know who goes Seal. You know who's Seal.
I know. But
you don't need the iPad.
But that's my point. They're my friends. I mean, we became a little family, and then we found out that the only way we could do this in post to keep this thing right and let this grow is we can't do it live, which I came to find out. Stan Stinson, thank you, Stan. If you're out there, why you're looking at the we're looking later. We're looking right now. It's just that I'm in my office, but Stan sent me a note actually after I made that call last week, and he said, most of these places do pre-record. It's okay. It's most people do. And it just made me feel good because, like I said, I felt like, I might be betraying my people, but then I realized, why are you doing this? You were trying to put a show on for, a handful of folks that have become your little family? Or are you trying to do it because you're trying to make a difference around those who are watching this? And it's like, I'm trying to make a difference, and they know that. That's why they wanted to help me. They didn't do it because they had nothing else to do on a Monday night, because they wanted to believe in what we were doing. And so we're still here. We're still watching. We can still say hi. It's just that we're trying to do it in a way that allows my mouth to match my voice. But hello, Ashley Haas. Hello, Stan Stinson. Hello, Michael Quackenbush, or the Bushquacker. Thank you for Hall of Fame Marie Rouchy, my favorite four-named lady. Thank you so much, Cindy Haas. Thank you for coming out. It's just me. Which is, of course, St. Nick. Thank you. Who else is out there that I'm not thinking of? Karen Boyd, obviously. Danny Herring. I'm trying to picture everything in my head. Why? Can you think of anybody I missed? Hey,
Who's Quack?
No, I said him. Forrest Bainey.
Forrest Bainey,
Forrest Bainey. Who else have we missed? Come on. I'm just by memory.
Yeah. Wow, that iPad really is important, isn't it?
Yeah. Benjamin Gregory's not with us, all right? He went off to the Air Force or something.
Okay.
Oh, my goodness.
Wait, hold on. Is he above or below the weather?
He's in the midst of the weather.
Oh, he got that part of it? Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. So, a while ago, we've got some really interesting guests coming, by the way. I was just in Texas, and I was performing at a conservative group, and they had some great people there, and four of them are going to come on the podcast. One of them was Coach Joe Kennedy, who was the guy that was praying after his football games in Washington on the 50-yard line, and they sued him and fired him from his job, and he went to the Supreme Court, and he won. Remember that story, Wyatt?
Oh, really? No.
Yeah, I'm glad. I didn't want you to know it. And so he's gonna be on. But Riley Gaines was there. Do you remember her?
No.
Okay, she's a swimmer from Kentucky that ended up swimming with Leah Thomas.
I don't know who that is.
Leah Thompson, a guy that pretended to be a girl so he could win all of the races.
Okay.
Anyway, she's been fighting for women's right to have women only in women's sports, oddly enough. And it is shocking that she would be so Neanderthal. But yeah, she would rather play sports with women of her ilk. So she's going to come on. And so we have that was just from that one meeting. But I want you guys to know that we get some great people coming. Who knows why? If we can ever fix the glitch, maybe we can sometimes come on live. Can we mix it up, you think?
Maybe, absolutely, yeah. We just got to get this stupid, annoying desync thing fixed.
So why don't we think about it like this, guys? As we grow this, hopefully, and we still see it turn into something even more, if we can find a way to do some lives, we'll do that every now and again. We'll throw that into the mix because we're so appreciative of you guys and always being here and caring about us. Please, if you are new to Brad Stine Has Issues, subscribe on my YouTube channel right now. Just subscribe and hit the notification button. Please share this everywhere you go. And hopefully it's fun. Remember, we are Christians. We are conservatives. We are comedians. So we want it to be fun, informative, but serious. God is real. It is the single most important thing in life for a human is to know God and understand it. It is the ultimate choice that has to be made for life to have any meaning, but more importantly, for eternal life. Conservatism, as into conserving wisdom, conserving autonomy of people, being able to live unmolested by the government. So conservative, limited taxes, right? People have the rights to their own property. This is conservative values, not left values. And of course, having fun. I mean, if you don't know who that voice was, that's Wyatt Stine. That's my son. He exuded from my loins. He didn't used to exist, and then I made him. And so he's part of this as well. But in all, we've tried to make the guests interesting. We've tried to make the show interesting, and we've tried to affect in some ways inform. And as you know, as we tape this on October 7th, 2024, and very shortly we'll have a new presidential election. And so a whole new phase of America will move into another direction. One way or the other, it's going to be messy. One way or the other, it's going to be difficult. One way or the other, because both sides will understand the full weight of what happens if their candidate gets into office. So we are praying that God will show us mercy. We're praying that people will care more about liberty than government intervention. That the people will care more about freedom. That people will care more about logic. That women shouldn't have to go to in sports with men. It's absurd. So back to normal common sense, the destruction of any kind of Marxist ideology, that is the destruction of America. Certainly probably a implosion of the academia and having to rebuild from scratch because it's completely infected. It's a dead host. The cancer is too far. Can't be operated on. But here we sit. And I met a guy through one of my business partners who said he has a lot of he sells supplements and everything, but he is a conservative, and he got there through Jewish guy, got there through watching the world happen and what was happening and how it affected him. And he's a fitness guy, but he's very interesting, and I want to show him Brad Stine Has Issues as a Christian podcast that I will have atheists on Jewish on, and Muslims on, and anybody on that I think has truth. All truth is God's truth, and is interesting. I've had a few people on that just were interesting, like a sideshow performer. So these are, sword swallow and stuff. Just sometimes I just want entertaining guests I think you might find fascinating and eclectic. So that's part of what makes us very unique within the sphere that I'm in. And so I hope you appreciate it, you enjoy it. Please go to bradstine.com and join the mighty 10,000, $3 a month. And you can have all of my comedy that you can download for free as much as you want, or watch it on your computer. Or you can upgrade a bit and you can get the t-shirt, you can get your number that I will sign. And together, we will just fight the good fight. And we do believe that Christ is God. He's the most amazing human in history and recorded as such. So we'd love for you to follow us in that space, because we do believe it is, in fact, the one-time God Almighty, the truth, revealed himself in three-dimensional flesh. But for right now, now that you've found, and I'm sure grateful that I didn't drown, now that you are aware that my son can come up with words on a whim, and even when he invents them, he doesn't know what they mean, I think you've had a good, well-rounded sense of what this show can be. But now we're going to take it even deeper. We're going to bring in on another guy with his other point of view and his own way of seeing the world. And I think it just might be of benefit to you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. So please enjoy this interview with Marc Lobliner. This next guest is somebody that's has a very interesting life and history. You're about to find out. And just also, I hope, an inspiration to you as an individual about what can be done in a free market society, but also just to fight for freedom and strength. We need warriors, and we need courageous men and women in this day and age. And one of them happens to be here with me right now. His name is Marc Lobliner. I didn't name him that. His parents did. So maybe they'll come up. Who knows? But for right now, he's here. So please welcome to Brad Stine Has Issues. Because we can't afford a trumpet. Marc Lobliner. How do you do, brother?
I'm doing great.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on. I appreciate you coming with me. First thing I've noticed is you seem to be wasting away. Is it anorexia? What is it?
It's the food shortages, inflation, shrinkflation. It's all taking its toll on me.
That's too bad. Yeah, you look horrific.
Yeah, I get that a lot.
Is it celery diet? Is that what it is? Just celery?
I can't afford celery.
You can't? Okay.
Yeah, it's just not eating.
Well, listen, let's start with that, Marc, because you got a lot of interesting things about your life that we're going to talk about. But let's start with the obvious, because I think that this, obviously you're in great shape. But so what? There's a lot of people in great shape. But that has more meaning to you than just, hey, I like to work out. There's a lot of things that transpired to not only cause you to be interested in physical fitness, but how it's even affected the way you've gone about incorporating that into your life, maybe into your business plans and so forth. So let's talk a little bit about who you are, how you see yourself. What is your role in society? What is the meaning of life, Marc? Help us.
Well, I'm an IFBB professional bodybuilder, which is basically like the NFL. Like there's arena football, there's international football. NFL is the pinnacle of football. Whereas IFBB is the pinnacle of bodybuilding. That's the best pro you could be. It's the best division.
Okay. Is that like Mr. Universes and all those guys?
Mr. Universe was actually NABA. Mr. Olympia would be IFBB. So that, and again, the organizations, the IFBB is clearly the best right now.
And Mr. America, wasn't there a Mr. America
Mr.
at
America,
one time?
I believe, was also NABA. So there was an organization called NABA in the 60s, 70s that was really dominant. Okay. And then the IFBB kind of took over from there, with the Mr. Olympia becoming our Super Bowl. So which
Schwarzenegger's a big involved in that. 6 times.
6-time Mr. Olympia, yeah, good, very good. Yeah. So for me, bodybuilding is a hobby. During the day, I run multiple businesses. I'm a father of 3. Take that very, very seriously. I coach all my kids in sports. I also own a youth performance facility in Franklin, Tennessee, called Legacy of Carbon. We coach entire teams, entire high school football teams. Basically, high schools outsource us. Because we will do better than just a teacher teaching strength at school. Like, we are professional trainers. But
strength training.
Strength, speed. We make kids bigger, faster, and stronger. 100%, and less susceptible to injury. So that's my passion. But we talk about some God-given talents. God made me really good at business. Or he gave me the work ethic to become really good at business, become an expert at what I do. So throughout the years, I've started many businesses. I've sold a couple businesses. And, my role in society is to be a man and to lead, whether it's a corporation or my family. So I look at that as my role. And with the platform that I've grown over the years that have been bestowed upon me, I try to promote fathers. I try to promote men being men, doing men stuff.
Now, isn't that toxic?
I love toxic masculinity.
That's terrible.
We need more. See, the problem is, if you look at society, the downfall, we look at the racial issues with different families, right? Inner city families, the amount of crime. You can trace it all back to single parenting. Yes. To single mothers. So as soon as they extracted the father out of inner city families, crime went up, education went down, family values went down. And that leads to more single parent households, because men don't have a man to show them what a man should act like. And while there's a lot of brave and awesome single mothers out there, we can't deny the fact that you need a strong male role model within the household. And that's why I got into coaching, because you're able to, and I'm not going out there wearing a MAGA hat. Like, I'm out there and I'm just simply creating work ethic within these children. I'm showing them that meritocracy does matter, and losing sucks, and winning is everything, because life is about winning. Think about it from a business standpoint. If you go into, let's say you're pitching for shelf space, let's say my Outright bar, and I'm pitching to Walmart. There's like 1,000 other brands pitching. You know who gets on the shelf? The winner. The loser, they don't get paid. They don't get that deal. So life is about winning. There's no participation trophies in life. There just isn't. You might get some programs to help you out, but to be really successful, to truly maximize what you're put here on earth to do, you have to always strive to win.
Yes.
And that's what we teach these kids. We are not a participation trophy organization. We are coaching for these kids to win state titles, for these kids to go Division I. And guess what? Most of them won't. But you know what? They'll have that work ethic. So whatever they choose to do, they will understand the work it will take to get to that next level.
So what about the mental aspect of that? Because, you know, we're now living in a culture in the progressive realm who are in control right now of America and probably the West in general.
Yes.
I think the WEF and all of those organizations are all basically Marxist, and they're basically trying to deconstruct meritocracy for sure. I mean, that's what equity means. Everybody gets to the same spot. And what's interesting about that is they feel like it's unfair if everybody doesn't end in the same spot. And yet it's kind of like, when in human history has that ever occurred? There are people that happen to be better at certain things than other people. And more importantly, there are people who work harder than other people. Why are they punished for being really good and studious and strong and relentless? Used to be an honorable way to live your life. So what have you seen, perhaps even in working with schools, which of course have a government connection, so oftentimes there can be some odd things thrown into the mix where they'll come to you and say, listen, you got to do A, B, and C. So have you seen any of this sort of wokeism, this Marxist elements that try to threaten what you are able to teach, which is you're as good as you choose to be?
So first off, I'd like to say I'm anti-equity. Equity's stupid.
Of course.
Equity's unfair, and equity, I'm pro-equality. Yeah. Equality means, how they interchange those words is beyond me. Equality means you have the equal opportunity to reach a certain level. Equity means no matter how hard you work and how good you get at something, you will end up at the same level as someone who works less than you. And that just destroys meritocracy, destroys the reason to work. Yeah. When human nature is to get as much as possible for as little as possible. So if I can do 10% of the work someone else does and basically benefit from their hard work and pull myself to the top, that's not going to work. So when we coach teams, again, the weakest link, you can't just have one stud player take you to state. You have to have a team. You can't have a great quarterback because you need an offensive line to block for them. Fortunately for me, you know, I started my career in strength coaching soccer clubs, very based soccer club. I hate to use that word based, who wanted to develop children. Development was number one, winning was number two. But if you develop them correctly, the wins will come. Luckily for me in Williamson County, we don't get any of that. Williamson County is great.
Good.
Oh, I mean, the teachers are great. The administrations are great. Everybody's great. And the parents are amazing. We live in the best county in the world. We are very fortunate.
How do you mean that? I mean, in what way? You can't just say they're great. In how? Give me examples of, because perhaps people watching from all over the other states go, I want our county to be like these guys. So tell me about that.
So the thing is, we are in a county where, if you look at where people got their success, when I think it was Dave Ramsey, a local guy, interviewed a bunch of millionaires. I think it was like 90% of them didn't start out as millionaires. They didn't, I don't know the exact statistic, but it was crazy high. So the people who become millionaires are generally people who had to work. And if you have to work to become a millionaire, you know, I started broke. You know, I came from no money. Every brick on my house, my wife and I put on there, dollar by dollar, penny by penny, brick by brick. So by living in a county like this, you look at the socioeconomics of this county, it's very wealthy. Yeah. But if you look at the layout of who becomes millionaires, it's normally people who have to work. And when somebody with money moves to Williamson County, they're generally escaping the bad policies of other areas. So they're escaping California. All of my neighbors, and I say all of them, with the exception of maybe one, I'm talking about 50, 60, 70 neighbors. They're all extremely conservative, but they've all come from New York, California, Illinois. So they come here to get away from those policies that punish meritocracy, that punish hard work, that punish somebody. You know, if you've ever started a business, you understand that you're not getting paid. You're not getting much money. And if you started, especially without venture capitalist money, you're living paycheck to paycheck, and every profit you have goes back into the company. Right. So you understand that you have to grind and you have to get up every day earlier than anybody else and go to bed after anybody else. Because your competition, I'm paraphrasing Mark Cuban, your competition is working 24 hours a day to try and take everything you have.
Yes.
So that's the mindset. So when these kids are training, and these parents know it, when these kids are training, they need to make sure that they're outworking their counterparts. And that's the beauty of what we do at Legacy of Carbon, because we'll have kids from schools, 2 football players, who during the season will be lined up against each other trying to beat the other guy, trying to rip their head off. But during that time, they're on the same team. They're trying to better themselves. And by watching their opponent work, it's going to make them work harder and harder and harder. And that's what you have to do in business. Instead of looking at somebody with money and say, I hate that guy because he's rich, you need to look at him and say, I want to know what that guy did, and I want to do it. And I guarantee you, that guy probably outworked everybody below him.
Right.
There's a common denominator. Some people get lucky. Some people strike it rich. Some people might have bought Bitcoin when it first started. Not many. Not many. So you need to look at those statistics. So when I look at this area, and this is the reason I love it here, is because there's a lot of like-minded people who understand. And of course, there's going to be exceptions. We do have Democrats here. But you have an area where people understand that the harder you work, the luckier you get.
To see the polarization in America, in the ideologies, in the way people see things. So you said something about the rich people and how they had to work hard and accomplish this thing, and it was known, unless they inherited it for the most part, they had to create it, right? And that's what capitalism is. That's what free enterprise is. That's what a free agent is. That's what as a Christian Christ follower, I believe God creates us and then said, now you go procreate. You go take what I've given you. Now you figure it out. Do it with me. Make sure you understand who you owe this to, but go forth and do likewise. So what I'm getting at is there's nothing intrinsically evil about getting rich. What's evil is if that becomes your God. What's evil if you use that against other people or try to harm it. I mean, here's what I wanted to get at. You said something about, people being rich and seeing them maybe as unfair to ill-gotten gains, whatever. And I've said this many times on my podcast. I grew up and I'd see rich people and I was never jealous of them. And the reason was I'd look at them and go, look, I want to be like, they showed me, look what you can do in America. I can be that guy. So it was a proof of concept. Oh, I can become that thing. So to me, it was an inspiration. Now, here's where I'm at though. I'm also watching in the world a real deleterious use of money to now control people. I'm seeing oligarchy. I'm seeing Zuckerbergs. I'm seeing Bezos, so forth, who have more money than they can literally spend. So you're thinking, well, then you do the best good for the most people because, man, you really did well. And they seem to have this very sort of sense of control, like they're getting so rich and so powerful that the only thing they have left to do is control the world.
Yeah.
Because they don't have to make any more money. The business, you did it. You created Facebook. I don't know what else you can say. You created Google. You created Amazon. Dude, you killed it. So tell me about, how do we look at rich people objectively to also see how it can be abused to control and harm people? Because that's the thing that's starting to really make me concerned about what these guys are doing now with technology, censoring people's points of view, so forth. Zuckerberg just came out as we're taping this and said, yeah, the government made me say. I mean, look, dude, that's serious stuff, man.
So the question is Zuckerberg coming around, or is he just trying to avoid jail later on?
Right.
That's the question. So there's a saying, money is the root of all evil. So money can do a lot of good, but it can also do a lot of bad. So the question becomes, do the people who are investing in, let's say, Act Blue or whatever organizations do they truly believe that that is the right path forward for the country? Do they truly believe that an economic system, socialism, which wouldn't let them get to where they're at now, is the right way to go? And that's a great question.
Yeah.
One which I do not have an answer.
Dang it.
They have.
Wyatt, that's why I brought him on, to have an answer.
They have theories about a great cabal. I think that once you get to, now money does change people. I've seen it firsthand. And power, people get that power. Think about it as dopamine. They get that dopamine rush from doing that action, from getting that response, be it positive or negative. So when you have all the money in the world, what's the next thing? Power.
That's it.
Power. I think it was DJ Quick who said, first you get the money, then you get the power, then you get the, I'm not going to say it here. It was a bad word. So
you can say whatever you want on this podcast, just so you know.
I'm just paraphrasing hip hop. I'm from the West Coast.
Yeah.
So I think that you have a situation where there is evil in this world, but then you have people with money. You know, Trump is the only president to ever lose money after being in office. Then look at Elon Musk. He bought Twitter, now X, and made it a free speech platform. Yeah. And now you're seeing the turn of tides. We're seeing Zuckerberg come out and basically lay out the whole Democrat Party, lay out the entire Harris-Biden administration. So are we seeing a change of tides? And also you have to realize politics, they tend to go back and forth, right? You got Carter, Reagan, you know, then you got Clinton, Bush, then you got Obama, Trump, Biden. America's always had that go this way, go that way, go this way, go that way. The question is then election integrity.
That's it.
Like, so if we are having fair elections, theoretically, we should naturally flip-flop again. In theory. I mean, America's always been like that because you see, you know, I don't like this. I'm going to vote the other way. I don't like this. I'm going to go the other way. The problem is right now, the media is obviously all the way to the left.
They're activists now. They're no longer journalists.
There's no journalism going on. Yeah. But the good news is with social media, Elon Musk is the most important person in this entire movement by simply making X a free speech platform with, of course, limits. It's not complete free speech.
Guy at Telegram, he just gets arrested. So because they said he didn't do enough, I guess, to curtail some criminal enterprises that were using his system to speak. But the point was to chill free speech. Basically to say, if you don't do what we tell you to do with your platform, make sure you understand, we will put you in jail. I mean, dude, you said something, but it's more, it can't be just sort of thrown aside like it's something to consider. Election integrity. If we can't vote out Marxist, incompetent, absolute buffoons like Joe Biden, who, by the way, was never president of the United States for two reasons. One, I believe it was a stolen election. And I agree. And the reason I believe that, and I just said it on my last podcast, is not because of all the 2,000 mules and all the things we saw in discrepancies that clearly happened. What I saw was one pattern that was interesting. What are you unable to say on social media? Because whatever you're forbidden to say probably is true. You were said, not only do we don't want you to talk about election integrity when that happened, you're not allowed to. You will be removed. If you think ivermectin is good for people with COVID, you as a doctor in viruses will be removed. That tells me this is true. This doesn't make any sense. And then here comes the election in Kerry Lake, and I forgot the girl that stole it. But anyways, in Arizona, same thing. When the Arizona woman said, I'm not going to debate Kerry Lake, I said to myself, she's stealing this. Because that's what Biden did.
And she counted the votes.
Yes.
She was literally the person in charge of counting the votes.
So, and then when here comes Kamala Harris out of nowhere, and she won't do an interview. And I thought to myself, and I said this last podcast, my prediction is she's going to win the election. Because they've just said, by her saying, I will not debate, I will not do the media. It's because they're going to steal it. So she doesn't have to do it. And I've seen the pattern. And I made a statement about this last podcast to say, I'm documenting this August 26th, whatever it was. So I hope I'm wrong. But if not, I'm coming back here so we now see what the pattern is, which is what are you forbidden to say in social media? Because that is what's really true. This is way out in the weeds from what we started with, but we might as well talk about it.
Well, I mean, you have to look at religion. The Democrat Party has become a religion. For example, Kamala never received one vote.
No.
She didn't even get one delegate in the primary the last time she ran. She was just inserted in and they just follow along.
Yep.
Because for them, no matter what their position is, no matter what the platform, today it could be abortion, tomorrow it could be free Palestine. They go in lockstep. So for the Democrats, it's not about issues, it's a cult.
Yes.
The Democrat Party is no longer a party, it's a cult.
It is.
And the reason the Republicans have a problem is because you have people arguing within the party because they actually vote on issues. You know, you have this argument about abortion now. The pro-lifers like, I can't vote for Trump because he's not banning it all outright. Whereas I'm like, it's one of those, you toss it up. I'm not a big fan of abortion, but would you rather have limits where you can only do it, the heartbeat, for example, the heartbeat bill by DeSantis in Florida, or would you rather have them stabbing babies on the way out of the birth canal?
Right.
And that's what Democrats support.
Yeah.
The former governor of Virginia was literally talking about they will take babies who are born healthy, make them comfortable, and then kill them.
Yeah.
So again, it is a cult.
Yeah.
The Democrats are a death cult.
Yes.
They are about sterilizing children. They are
mutilating them.
Which will in turn sterilize them. And the thing is, puberty blockers. I'm a pro bodybuilder. I know about hormones. Okay, it's what we do.
Yeah.
When you cannot, there is no reversible puberty blockers. No such thing. Once you start messing with hormones, it's not reversible because there's a window in when that stuff can happen. You can't just pause puberty. And also, there's still a huge difference in bone density. You have the intranatal testosterone that boys are developing with. You can't just stop that. Basically, they're just mutilating and sterilizing children. It should be a crime. The people who've done it, the doctor who performed the surgery, they should be in prison. They should be in Gitmo right now.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, you have one side, and it's about hating Trump. But here's the thing. Trump was the most loved man in the country. I was listening to, what was it, Nelly the other day on the way to football. I coach my kids' football team. I love Nelly. Gets me hyped up for the game. You know, Here Comes the Boom, I believe was him. And one of the lyrics was, Bill Gates, Donald Trump, let me in. Donald Trump, Mac Miller made an entire song about Donald Trump being awesome. But once he ran for president, all of a sudden he's racist.
Yeah.
After winning awards for not being racist by the NAACP. So the media controls the narrative.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if it's Trump, DeSantis, doesn't matter who it is. Tulsi Gabbard, she is a woman of color. She is a active duty reservist. And they have her on a no-fly list.
Yeah.
They have her on a watch list. You tell me how that works. She wasn't on there when she was the sweetheart of the Democrat Party. She was the future.
Yeah.
She ended Kamala's run in that debate. She destroyed her. So the Democrats will stop at nothing to win, whether it's cheating the election.
That's right.
But it's not about making the country great. It's about power and it's about control.
That's right.
And we saw that during the 2020 pandemic. We saw that. Governor Tim Walz, look what he did. He literally banned Thanksgiving. And then he put a hotline in so people could call and rat out their neighbors for having Thanksgiving dinner. So that's what we're up against. So it's the righteous. It's basically good versus evil right now. And I just did an entire podcast of Shira Solomon, Black and Jewish is her podcast.
That's
And
your podcast or
it's
hers?
not mine, it's hers.
Okay.
I'm not black.
She's black and Jewish?
Yes.
Okay.
Very great combination.
Yeah.
Yep. She loves
A lot of
jewelry
people
and
don't
Cadillacs.
know that there are black Jews. I
lot of them.
interviewed some in Israel when I was doing my documentary, Boycott This. But I didn't know that either. I mean, you think it's going to look like the typical, rabbi or whatever. And man, you guys are all over. Because I know you're one of them.
Yeah.
You're of the tribe.
Genetic. I don't practice.
Okay.
I can't give up my Friday nights. Sorry, guys.
Okay.
And also, I live in Tennessee. Can you imagine not eating pork ribs?
I can't.
I can't. That would be God's like, come on, just eat the pork.
Right.
It's delicious.
You're going to have to join the Christians. That way you can still have your Judaism, but then you can eat whatever you want.
That makes sense. We still got that Old Testament.
That's right.
We just have the unauthorized sequel.
That's right. That's right.
No, I mean, so my whole thing is looking at this from a fiscal standpoint. I have to be conservative because they want to put in a 44% capital gains tax.
Yeah.
They want to put in an unrealized capital gains tax, and they say it's for people who earn 100 million plus. You know that's not going to last.
No.
That's going to bump down to 100,000 plus real quick.
Oh, yeah. That's like the people that say, we're going to just tax you while we're building this toll road. So we're going to take the tolls, and then once it's done, they say, we're just going to keep it. It's like, well, I thought this was just until we built the thing. It's always a lie.
Well, we shouldn't have federal tax. That was put in to fund the Civil War. It was supposed to go away. TSA was supposed to go away.
Yeah.
The Patriot Act, not really patriotic. So I look at it like this. From a fiscal standpoint, you have to vote Republican. You just have to. And I'm not even a Republican. I consider myself a 90s Democrat. Unfortunately, the left has gone off a cliff.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden, I'm an alt-right white supremacist, which makes no sense. I've been called a Nazi. I'm literally Jewish.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, you're a Nazi. I'm like, fine, I guess so. So look at it. She wants to put the 25% unrealized capital gains. Let me explain that. So let's say you have a house, this house, let's say, and your house, you bought it for $300,000. If you got it in Brentwood, you're killing it. So you bought it for $300,000. It's worth $400,000 now. They appraise it at $400,000. That means the government would send you a bill for $25,000 a year because you have unrealized capital gains. Can you imagine how absurd that is? And okay, well, it's only for the billionaires. Oh, by the way, Bernie doesn't mention millionaires anymore because he is one.
Right.
Okay, so you have a situation where you're going to why are we punishing people for being successful? Yeah. Why should a guy worth $100 million be punished worse than a guy?
Well, but you talked about it being a cult.
It's a cult.
The Democrat Party,
Absolutely.
the progressives, the left is what I call it. I learned that more from Dennis Prager.
Yeah.
I used to use liberal as the pejorative, and it's like now I'm like I long for liberals. Because the thing about a liberal was a classic liberal.
Yes.
They would let you disagree and you would have conversations. It was like firing line and Buckley, and you would actually say, here's my point of view, here's mine, and let the people decide which choice. But everybody got a place at the table. Leftism is Marxism. It is like you don't get to disagree or we will jail you, we will kill you, we will censor you. That's why it's so evil, because it's totalitarianism. And it not only doesn't it not function in America, it just certainly returns us to serfdom. We become slaves again. And this never ends, because the power thing has always been what drives all of humanity. Somebody wants, some king, some tribe, some warlord wants to control everybody else.
Yep.
But we're now in a position where it's kind of feasible. The internet. I have the Library of Congress sitting in my office right now. I can find anything I want. I mean, it's a wonderful thing. But if your money is all in currency, is all in digital currency, and somebody gets in control that decides, I don't like how you vote, they just go, bye-bye.
Well, ask the Canadian truckers.
I
Ask
know.
the trucker convoy.
I had Give, Send, Go, Heather, the one who started Give, Send, Go, on. They're being sued, I think, $225 million by the Canadian government because they funded the truckers or gave them a platform to try to raise money. So, yes.
It's getting to the point, I won't travel to Canada. I was thinking of doing a pro show last year, the Toronto Pro. It's an IFBB pro show. I won't go because I have tweets out there that can literally put me in jail for 10 years plus.
What, like, give me an example so we can hear what
of my tweets?
Yeah.
Oh, I go off at anyone.
Well, say something that would put you in jail in Canada. Let's not say that. Let's prove what you're talking about so people can follow along.
Just simply insulting fat people can get you thrown in jail.
Okay.
Like, I mean, there's so many of them. And I don't think your audience is ready for my X account.
Well, I am a free speech advocate as a comic, so just so you know, you can say anything. I don't censor people. If we have to do a beep or something, we will. But you need to be you for this to be an authentic conversation. So
okay, Trudeau's a communist. There's one. Okay. Or Trudeau should be jailed for crimes of humanity. And just talking bad about the vaccine. That'll get me thrown in jail. Simple things. So hear me out. What can happen if there's a Democrat elected is they're going to pass some law, and a state like Texas or Tennessee or Alabama be like, nah, we're not doing it. So what would happen? South Dakota the other day, the feds came in and shut down a farm, and Kristi Noem went and she just cried, oh, how can the feds do this? I'm like, you could have stopped it. You could have sent in the National Guard and you could have protected that. You could have sent in the local sheriff and stood ground versus the feds. You realize how close we were to a hot civil war a couple months ago at the border? So you had federal agents saying, no, you can't stop them. You had Texas, National Guard, like, oh, yes, we will. And then Tennessee, the volunteer state, we're like, we have nothing. We have no border here. Let's go fight with them. Tennessee,
which wasn't the first time.
No, it's what we're known for.
We were at the Alamo.
It's literally what our entire state is named
Volunteer
after.
state, yeah.
So Bill Lee goes and says, okay, you want the smoke? We're going to send some people over there too. What would have happened at the border if one agent was like, yo, I have naked pictures of your mom.
Yeah.
And then the other saying, no, you don't. Yeah, I do. Boom. Shot goes off. They have a little tiff. Hot war. We're in a hot, people don't realize how close we were to a hot civil war. So what will happen is you have 25 to 26 states that do not align with the federal government. What happens when they're just like, nah, we're not doing it? And nobody listens to the Supreme Court anymore. The Supreme Court just ruled against college loan payback again. The first time they did it, guess what? Biden did it anyways. So what happens when the Supreme Court of the land is being ignored? Laws only work if they're followed.
Right.
And the only reason laws even have place is because of police officers who will blindly follow anything.
Yeah.
So the problem is during COVID, out here, we didn't have a problem because cops were like, I'm not enforcing that. Nah.
Yeah.
The sheriffs were like, nope. Orange County, California. All the businesses stayed open because their sheriff was like, nope, not doing it.
Yeah.
Not doing it. So what will happen is you will literally have a federal divorce where you will have states that do not recognize the federal government. As we've seen before during the Civil War, what happened the last time that happened? You had a civil war.
Yeah, with secession. Well, I've heard people say that maybe that's what's going to happen to America, is we're just going to self-ascribe ourselves to the red or blue. We're going to choose a state that aligns with how we see it. We're going to live that way. So it almost becomes a soft secession where it's not done by actual legal caveat or making a declaration of secession. We're just going to kind of live this way. And like you said, if that happened where enough people were involved in each state so they could vote for their governor, vote for their mayors, vote for their Congress and so forth, so that we can say we ain't doing A, B, and C.
Yeah.
In a way, you're taking control, you're taking the states' rights versus the federal government, which has always been the case. It's how we got the Constitution. There was many states that wouldn't even sign on to the Constitution if they couldn't succeed. That was part of their negotiation because they didn't want the federal government to control them if they chose to make different decisions. And that was the beautiful thing about America, was there really was this freedom. You need a federal government. You need somebody to kind of fight our wars and help us and taxes and imports and so forth. Obviously you need a structure of some kind, but we're a united states. We choose to be united, but we are independent. Well, like each state is like its own country.
It is.
It's its own.
With each governor being the sovereign president of that said country. So, I mean, we just have to look historically and look at how the country's set up. That is the 10th Amendment. That is what it is set up to do. The federal government bestowed powers for the borders, for national defense. But again, the federal tax should not be there. And there's already a case study of that, New Hampshire, the Free State Project, where a bunch of libertarians moved to New Hampshire, voted a bunch of people out, voted people in. They have no sales tax and they have no state tax. So you've already had an experiment where that happened. And COVID accelerated that, where people like my brother lived in Illinois, loved Illinois. He's in Texas now. So basically you had an exodus, whereas California, actually, even with immigration, has a negative population decline.
Yes.
And they're moving all over the place. And yeah, there are some who are voting stupid still. They screwed up Colorado. Colorado used to be awesome. Now you've seen that Venezuelan gangs have taken over Aurora. Literally armed Venezuelan immigrant gangs have taken over Aurora. That's what's happening in beautiful Colorado. So we had this mass exodus where California became more blue because all the conservatives left, which means that the other states became more red. Look at the Florida margin of victory for DeSantis in the last election. Crazy. Florida used to be a purple state. Now it's as red as you get. Well, not as red as like, Mississippi probably, but it's damn red. The Cubans, the Latino vote went Republican. So you've already seen this mass exodus, mass polarization, a national divorce in real time. So now that you have states that are clearly red, clearly blue, there's only like 3 battleground states now. What happens? When you have states that their entire constituency does not agree with the federal government, you have a government elected by the people, what they would call an extremist government. You have a Matt Gaetz type guy. You have those type leaders who are like, no, we're not doing it. What happens? What happens when Biden's like, oh, we're going to do this? And then you're like, nah, I'm not doing it. Well, here's my executive order. Cool. We're not following it. Sanctuary states. Democrats did it when Trump was in office. Sanctuary states for illegal immigrants.
Yeah.
Sanctuary states for marijuana. So what happens when the federal government has no power and nobody listens to the Supreme Court? It's anarchy.
Yeah.
It's every
Which is
state
what
for
they
themselves.
kind of are shooting for. So what do you think is the big picture? Who's starting all this? Who created all this? What is happening? You know, and I don't think it's U.S. generated, even though we put some crazy crap out. This whole transgender thing came from us. So, you know, we have a lot to account for to God for the crazies. But there does seem to be, and I think this is what Corona, and I've said this numerous times, was so good about, was it exposed so much. Something about Corona made it, when the masks came on, the masks came off. We saw this saying, oh my God, we're not in control. Holy smoke, we don't really get to vote them out because who knows how long we've ever been able to vote. Who knows how long this has been happening? Who's running the show? So, you know, you obviously have a bead on the political realm. You know how important that is because it's the only way that we as citizens can defend ourselves. We need some kind of army, whether it's intellectual, whether it's ideological, to defend ourselves, right? Because here's the thing. We have a Second Amendment. Everybody talks about the Second Amendment. Well, we got the militias, we got our guns, and we do. It certainly makes it more difficult for a government to take over, a despot to take over, because the first thing every totalitarian government has ever done is disarm their citizens. You have to. I don't want you to be able to shoot back. Well, everybody, they all do it. Because, of course, if you can't shoot me back, I win. And even some of these Western countries, Australia and so forth, who kind of did this because of one incident, they said, yeah, maybe we should give it away. And this is what so broke my heart about America during Corona. The government didn't steal our First Amendment right. That would be one thing. People gave them away.
Yes.
And that's much worse because it shows that most Americans are cowards. Most Americans, I'm talking about what we are now. See, I think there's now a differentiation between American and a citizen. It used to be that to be a citizen in the United States was glorious. It was something you shot for. It was like being a citizen of Rome. It gave you a lot of status, a lot of leverage. But now I'm realizing that it isn't the same. Anybody can be a citizen if you're approved, which means you get the rights, the benefits of those who went before you to have the freedoms given to you to the United States. But you don't have to love America to be a citizen anymore. You can hate America. You can try to destroy America. An American wouldn't do that. American would believe that we should have sovereign borders. American would believe the Constitution is sacrosanct. American would believe that we're allowed to defend ourselves and that victims are the ones that should be preferenced over those who have committed the crimes. Americans should speak same language. You can speak other languages, but this is our national language. Americans should have a free enterprise. Americans should be able to do. That was what it meant to be an American. You should salute your flag. Yes, the very fact that you live in a country that gives you the freedom to burn your flag is exactly why you shouldn't. But the reason that you are not demanded of such is because we believe that you will be a free agent, a moral structure unto yourself that will make the right moral calls. That's why all the founding fathers said we have to be a religious people, because we are a republic. We are self-ruled, which means if I'm not moral as a human being, whether you're watching me or not, then it's not going to work, because that's the fragility of freedom. It's dangerous because people can decide, I don't want it anymore because I'm afraid of a virus. I'm afraid of China. I'm afraid of whatever. So I'll give you whatever you want, including my freedom, if you'll keep me safe. So we are losing the DNA of what it meant to be American, and we cannot survive. You know, diversity is not our strength, it's our destruction. We are e pluribus unum, out of many, one. That's what makes it. Multiculturalism doesn't work unless those cultures that bring the best of their culture to us become part of us, or we can't survive. A house divided falls. That was quite a soapbox of me, but I want you to respond to that, because here's what I see today, because I was curious about how far we would take this conversation. But I see you like me. We're just laymen. We're just Americans. Yeah. We're not really politicians. We didn't go to Yale.
We should be. That's our fault.
Okay, we'll talk about it.
We should be running for office.
Okay.
It's a government of the people.
Yes.
Instead, we're electing former bartenders who are bought and paid for and paid actresses like AOC. We're electing idiots, career politicians. Joe Biden, Michelle Obama's worth 70 million. Joe Biden's worth hundreds of millions, making $176,000 a year as a senator. The problem is these are careers. Politics in America was set up by our founders to be of the people, by the people.
And it was a privilege. You became a senator, you became and then you did your work, and then you came back into society and had to live amongst the rules you created.
Amen.
Well, they don't have to do that anymore.
Feinstein was literally dead voting. She died a day she allegedly voted. She was literally in a wheelchair like this. And you're telling me she actually voted? They're not voting. They're being told who to vote for by special interest groups.
Well, what has gotten you, when did you become a civilian activist?
2020.
So what happened? Who were you before that?
Business.
Because you mentioned you were a Democrat, I guess. And there was a time in the 60s when a Democrat was kind of a...
So I'm anti-war.
Okay.
And the Democrats were always a party of anti-war.
Okay.
But in 2020, everything changed. And you talk about people gave their freedoms. No. We just thought we were alone because as someone who was shadow banned from YouTube and had accounts canceled on social media, I literally mentioned vitamin D and I got a strike. I didn't even know what the virus was. I just said, hey, so for the flu, vitamin D, 2 out of every 3 years is as effective as the flu vaccine. And you can look, there's data because it's about 10% effective. Whereas vitamin D also shows a 10% efficacy rate against the flu. I'm like, so basically I'm telling people, hey, I don't care if you buy it from me. I don't care if you buy it from Walmart, Target. Make sure you take 5,000 IUs of vitamin D a day because I don't know what this virus does.
Is that like what they used to call a megadose of it? Or is that typical?
That's a good, especially for, okay, so sorry to get, supplements is what I do. So black people who live, dark-skinned people, not black, just like darker complected people, they don't create vitamin D as well because they have that natural complexion blocking the sun. It's an evolutionary trait. It's awesome. Like if your family, look at, for example, I'm an Ashkenazi Jew. My counterparts, Sephardic Jews, they look Muslim. They look Arabic. They're dark. They got curly hair. Want to know why? Sand, sun, it's evolution. So vitamin D, especially if you're in Chicago where it's cloudy 300 days out of the year, you're in the Midwest, vitamin D is going to be low. And also we work in cubicles every day. You're not getting enough sunlight to synthesize enough vitamin D. So I was like, hey, make sure you get your vitamin D. YouTube struck me down. Just for me, I didn't even mention, it wasn't even called COVID at the time. It was April of 2020. It was called the coronavirus. COVID was just coming out.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is we couldn't speak up about it.
Yeah.
And then once they saw people like me getting banned, losing platforms I worked since 2009 to build, they were like, I'm not losing that. I need to pay my bills. More people would have spoken up if we didn't have censorship. If we had X, if we had Rumble. I told you, Elon Musk is the most critical person in our society right now. He bought Twitter and made it a free speech platform so people can get information. The good news is you talk about the left owning the media. Guess what? CNN's views, I was just on Timcast the other day, Tim Pool. His views are like 10 times that of CNN. That's one guy. Then you got Rogan, you got Tucker. The only people watching mainstream media, they're 60 plus, boomers. The boomers are the problem and white liberal women. But whoa, that's besides the point.
I have more and more found women voting problematic, and it sounds so ridiculous, like you're being just this, misogynist.
I am a misogynist.
I'm
toxically masculine. I'm a misogynist. I'm a Nazi. I'm a white supremacist. I just speak facts. And also, you want to know facts. The average testosterone male. Just
for the viewers listening in that just caught that last section, what he's saying is this is what he has been called.
Yeah, it's just
he is a Jewish. What would you even call yourself now? A moderate, a centrist?
I'm definitely not a Republican.
Well, what are you?
I'd consider myself a conservative libertarian, Mises Caucus. I believe that some libertarians believe crazy stuff like open borders and
drugs, pure,
yeah, but they're nuts. They're nuts. Those libertarians are nuts. So I'm actually a member or a speaker for the Mises Caucus, which is essentially libertarians with values.
What is it? Mises?
Mises.
Okay.
Like the great von Mises, the guy. He's
I see.
So it's named after him.
Okay.
So, you know, I look at it this way. So let me talk about voting patterns. You've looked at the map of women versus men. If women, it would be overwhelmingly Democrat vote versus men, overwhelmingly Republican vote. So the problem is men today in their 20s have the same testosterone levels as men in the 80s who were in their 70s.
Why is that?
There's a lot of reasons. I think the number one reason is obesity. Fat is very estrogenic. Fat basically makes you more of a female. And if you look at fat distribution patterns of men and women, remember men used to have fat bellies and nothing else. Men have titties. Am I allowed to say titties? Mm-hmm. It's a great word. George Carlin. Yeah. That's one of the greatest skits of all time, by the way.
Oh, the 7 words.
How can titties be a bad word? That's such a great word. Titties. Men have the fat deposition of women. So I would say that obesity is number one, ultra processed foods, lack of exercise, lack of sunlight, lack of challenge.
By the way, you said sunlight is the natural vitamin D, yes? So you take the supplement to make up for that lack thereof. But let me ask you this. So are supplements basically even it out, or is it a lower version of the natural? In other words, is it better to get the sun than to take a vitamin D pill, or are they are they equal, or would you say no? Really, if you can do it organically, do it that way.
I've sold supplements my whole adult, well, most of my adult life. So I've always said supplements, they supplement, they don't substitute. So the goal is both. It's basically an insurance policy. You should get your vitamins from food, but you're not going to eat perfect every day. That's why you should take a multivitamin. Protein powder, you get that from food, but I get tired of eating chicken. I want to meet my protein goals for the day. So I'm going to have a protein powder. So supplements supplement. You can't out supplement a bad lifestyle and diet, period. You just can't do it. And if you look at what's happening with Ozempic now, stomach paralysis, there's a lot of side effects that are just now coming to light. Depression, suicidal thoughts. For every miracle drug, there's a lot of bad things. So you always have to look at that. Guess what has no bad side effects? Eating healthy and exercising. 100%. Why not do those? God gave you this vehicle, drive it.
We should also mention, just as an aside, because this is your bailiwick, though there are people, our genetics have something to do with it. And there are people that get a bad hand. I mean, they just have a bad genetic pool and they're going to get a cancer or they're going to get a particular thing. And maybe they can head it off at the pass, perhaps by being healthy. But let's be honest, there are people, I had a guy on my podcast, he weighed like, what did that guy weigh, Wyatt? You remember he was like 800 pounds?
How the hell did he get in this room?
He wasn't in the room. He was on Zoom.
Okay.
But he mentioned about a particular issue he had, some kind of, I don't think it was like his pituitary gland. It was something else. But he talked about how he wouldn't even eat and he could gain weight. And it sounds like, that sounds like an excuse. You're thinking. No, but apparently there are people who have an obese issue. And again, I am a meritocracy, get out there, walk, do your thing. So I'm not trying to get people off the hook. But to be fair, isn't it true that some people kind of have a DNA strike against them that they can't help?
Absolutely. That guy has a condition.
Yeah.
It's called being a pathological freaking liar.
Okay. All right.
Were there any fat people in the Holocaust?
No.
You have to eat an absurd amount of calories to be obese.
Okay.
He tells, so people
But you don't think there's any clinical proof that there can be something that happens to you that can cause an obesity that is not just a matter of fact that you eat cake every second of the day?
You eat too many calories based on what you need.
Okay.
It's 100%. So they actually did a study recently on thyroid. You know, everybody's like, oh, it's my thyroid. They did a study that had hypothyroid, they had normal thyroid, and hyperthyroid. They put them all on a controlled diet, which is a hypocaloric, meaning less calories than they need to sustain. Every single one of them had the exact same weight loss. Thyroid's not even an excuse. The only thing I can see being an excuse is PCOS, which is a female issue. And essentially that will cause an issue with weight gain. There are some hormone imbalances, which that is. However, I can imagine being 10, 20 pounds overweight and having trouble, but being 100 pounds overweight, you're eating a lot of food and you're basically face effing yourself with food.
Is there any way you can gain weight without overeating?
No, you just can't.
Can you overeat healthy food?
Oh, absolutely. It's calories in, calories out. So there is more to gaining and losing weight than calories in, calories out. A lot of things play a role, but that's the main thing by a lot. So food quality matters, but they've done actual controlled studies where they've ultra processed foods. If you eat hypocaloric, you're going to lose weight.
Okay.
You're going to lose weight. There was a Twinkie diet that worked. If you're on a controlled calorie diet, you're going to lose weight.
Okay. Well, and then we have this carnivore diets, and we have the, the anti-carb thing, and they seem to all work somehow, some way. They have there's a purpose, and it's beyond calories even. Like if your body has nothing else to burn, so you're not eating the carbs, then it has to burn the fat because it's got no other energy source.
Actually, no. So even in studies,
I don't know anything.
In studies,
why do I keep talking?
In studies putting keto head to head with a similar calorie diet with a mixed diet, they end up even. And actually, keto will actually underperform in certain studies. And I like keto. I'm a fan of keto for the health benefits. I like ketones as a fuel source for your brain. Huge fan of ketones as energy. Huge fan. So I'm speaking from an unbiased standpoint. I'm not selling a carbohydrate supplement, if that's what you're asking. But looking at the data, the carnivore diet, Dr. Sean Baker, who's actually the guy who called it the carnivore diet, he's a friend of mine. Even he'll say calories matter. I have a podcast with him where he's like, oh yeah, calories matter. And he's like, some people in the carnivore, they're weird and they say they don't matter, but calories do matter. But food source does matter for overall health and the quality of the nutrition you're getting. So if you're getting at 1,200 calories a day, and you get it from ultra processed junk versus getting it from healthy food sources, sweet potatoes, chicken, beef, whatever, vegetables, you're going to have better outcome than you would if you ate ultra processed junk.
Well, and one thing I learned, I had a heart plaque in my ventricles, whatever. So when I was diagnosed with that, and I did an ultrasound, so it was legit. It wasn't just like the cholesterol levels, because that's what I've learned is that's irrelevant.
It is.
That's
80% genetic too.
Well, you need cholesterol for your brain and for numerous other things. There's good cholesterol, and ultimately, it's not even about if you have a lot of cholesterol. It's like, does that stick? Because some people have slippery genetically, and it just doesn't stick. It doesn't matter if I got 3,000. If I look at my heart and say, you got nothing sticking, just eat away. I eat a ton of salt, love salt. And everybody says, oh, salt's bad for you. It's going to cause you a heart attack. And I went to my doctor and said, I eat salt. And I've never had nothing but perfect blood pressure. He goes, well, then eat salt. I don't care. And I think, you might disagree because you're such a fanatic on this thing. But what I'm learning is this. Moderation in everything is the key. Don't over obsess about everything, because when your ticket's punched, there's some things you can't do.
Exactly.
It's just going to happen. Do
plan.
your best you can do. Be wise. But and if you're around smoking and everything, you're probably limiting where you're going to go. But by the same token, you can be Jim Fix, the classic go-to, the guy that wrote the Runner's Bible, right? And then died of a heart attack. Genetically, you can't get away from that. If you happen to have that disposition for a particular heart attack, it's very likely you're going to get one.
The goal is to put it off as long as possible.
Yeah, or at least do your best to not exacerbate.
And you're going to feel better. You're going to have a better quality of life if you're not obese.
I don't want to leave hanging the single most important thing right now, which is where America's heading. We got an election coming up here shortly. You've made it very clear your position, your point of view, and what started it all was this Corona thing. But I think what I'd like you to do, if you could, is summarize what are the marching orders for people. And I'm talking to Americans. I get people watched from around the world, like they do on podcasts. And God bless you, Ireland or Scotland, which are also losing everything. The wheels are coming off. And they're Western countries in Europe, so I care about them because we have a need for allies. But I'm an American. I live in the United States. I'm responsible for this territory, and we got a very important election coming up that everybody always says could be the most important in history. But frankly, I don't know how it couldn't be, because we now have basically a communist that's running for a Democrat. Now, it can't get worse than that. Now, we still might find that will set off a peasants' revolt, and we get red states that become deeply, deeply red and say, we ain't doing anything you tell us. And then we're going to be in an impasse. But something has to give. It's not going to just work like that magically. Somewhere, somehow, something's going to have to go sideways. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants civil war. Nobody wants us to be shooting each other, obviously. But what do you do if the government literally begins to put you in prison and weaponizes the Department of Justice and so forth, which we're watching happening against American citizens? What do you do to defend yourself if the Constitution is being breached? So you said you believe in toxic masculinity, which is basically him saying, I believe in masculinity.
Yes.
It's just been called toxic. I believe in warriors being men. Men are the ones who control and have created everything. We love our women. We need our women. You are probably what has given us the impetus to go to war because we'll fight for you, but you've never conquered a nation in your life. You never created a constitution. Men are the leaders, and we're designed by God to lead the way so that it'll be safe for you women to be with us and we can provide for you. But I need you to, if you can, consolidate for people. You know, we're about to go, they're about to cut off social media. It's all going to go sideways. And this is we're fading in and out. And this is the last message you get out to the patriots before chaos ensues. From your perspective, your passion, what do we got to do? What's at stake, patriots? What is expected of them as we move into this next election?
Well, in the short term, you need to be healthier. If you're on, I think the average is 9 prescription drugs, you are controlled by the government, by big pharma. They own you. So to be independent, to have freedom, you have to have personal freedom. And with fitness, with health comes personal freedom. So number 1 is be healthy. Number 2, vote as hard as you can. I think it's only 30% of Republicans voted in the primaries this year. Get out and vote. Take 10 of your friends, go vote as hard as you can, and vote for Trump. Trump has aligned himself with 2 Democrats, RFK and Tulsi. Now, I'm a big RFK
Well, they aligned themselves with him.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, he let him in.
Yeah.
He let him in. And RFK is going to be put in charge of a lot of things we want him in charge of. In charge of America's health, in charge of the FDA, in charge of USDA, and might even be in charge of the CIA.
Oh, would that be ironic?
Who knows where Tulsi's going to go, but she's great. So you actually have, for the first time in our lives, a unity party. Everybody's like, we need to reach across the aisle. Tulsi in 2019 was the next Democrat. And they pushed her out of the party because she questioned some things. They pushed her out. So now you have a situation where you have a chance to make history, to make America great. I'm not going to say great again, to make it greater than it's ever been, and to at least put a stop for time being to the downward spiral we're going on. And we need to come together. It's the most, and they always say it's the most important election of your lifetime. I don't know if this is the most important. There's been a lot of them. I didn't live through all of them. It's pretty darn important. Yeah. I'm guessing during the Revolutionary time, I'm guessing, after Washington, there was a few really critical elections.
Well, look what it meant to elect Lincoln.
Oh, yeah.
Look what that did. I mean, here's a man that really was ready to go to war against other states so they couldn't secede, who was going to end slavery. I mean, and it killed him, right? It always kills you at the end.
They tried to get Trump.
Yes, that was the craziest thing.
Well, all I can say is and if you're in a blue state, you've put up a good fight, you've done your best. If you do not align with the values of that state, move. Because it's going to get to a point, if we have the worst case scenario, where we won't be able to, at least you and I, to travel to blue states, because they will imprison us for the things we've said. And they will not take up for you, and there will be nothing you can do. And the federal government will let it happen. So the only thing you can do is take care of your community, focus on local, focus on community, county, state. Federal, it's pretty far gone. Focus on your local community and make that great, and do what you can to help the next generation.
Well, that's important and simple. In some ways it's simple, but it's also courageous, because we've discovered what happens to people that have wanted to speak up during a corona, and it exposed so much. I've said this before, everybody talks about the emperor's new clothes, and they just laugh like, oh, the emperor's naked. And what's interesting to me is that everybody thinks they would be the kid.
Yeah.
Oh, the emperor's naked, huh? And everybody's like, no, it's gorgeous what he's wearing. Look at that amazing robe. But everybody believes they would be the kid. But Corona proved, did you wear the mask when they told you? Did you take every vaccine? Then you're not the kid. You're the people. Right. You're the ones. You're the ones that turned a blind eye when Jews were being put into boxcars and said, you know what, there's nothing happening over there. You were the ones that were so cowardly that people died on your watch. That's you. Now you got to...
the majority.
Yes.
The World War II, or Hitler's Germany could definitely happen again because it's human nature. Human nature is self-preservation. It's human nature. It's just what humans do. And certain people are strong enough to stand up. Most people would just follow. And we saw that during COVID. Saw a lot of really smart people become really stupid really fast. You know, it was even Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro, Daily Wire, right up the road. Just take the vaccine, you dopes.
Yeah.
No. First of all, it's not a vaccine.
Yeah.
Second of all, why?
Well, that was surprising because you would think he'd be a little bit more aware.
I think they're controlled opposition.
Maybe. That's
how did their YouTube channel blow up during that and everybody else's get suppressed?
Right. Well, interesting.
I'm never getting an invite to Daily Wire.
Well, it's a much deeper dive. Well, it's important. No, it's important that we they were never interested in, you know, in what I was doing. And I'm in the same thing. I was like, look, I know I don't do what you do. I'm a comic, but we're on the same team. Like we speak the same things. Let's work together. So it makes you wonder sometimes, is even conservatism leverage for monetary gain as opposed to ideological?
It's a grift.
Well, okay. And I would agree with that, but here's the challenge. Everybody is on the take. Everybody's a comment because
not everybody,
because we're all gonna, because you and I have to look at each other and say, except me.
There's a large amount of grifters out there. There's a lot of these conservative pundits used to be on the left, and a lot of the leftist pundits like Oliver Darcy from CNN, MSNBC, one of the two channels. He used to be a right-wing commentator, and then he went to the left. They flow with the money. You can follow their past, see where they're at. But a lot of it is just sensationalism. A lot of it is clicks. A lot of it is self-enriching. So we go back to the money issue. Money can be the root of all power. It can be the root of a lot of good. Yeah. It can also be the root of a lot of bad.
Well, you know, you said earlier that, you know, money is the root of all evil. And the actual biblical term is the love of money is the root of all evil. But that's a very important distinction because there are people that have done great good with money too.
Yes.
So because they weren't driven by it, but once they got it, they used it in a moral and virtuous way. And that exists too. That's what I meant about, you know, the controlled opposition. I don't know what's true anymore. I don't know. You don't know where to grab. Well, and it's terrible because it's just too bad. Just give me the information so we can draw conclusions. And it shows why this power of control is so crucial, because you can't even know how to assess what's up because you don't know what is true. And that's a miserable place to be as a free state because you can't even evaluate anymore information because you don't know what is happening. That's why it's such a deeper, darker, I think it's an age-old issue that has never ended in the world, that is just becoming reignited. Worship of Baal and demons. I mean, it's real, baby, and it's coming to fruition.
Actually, follow the money, though. Look at who's 75% of MSNBC and CNN's ads. Who pays their ad? And that's they're an ad-driven company.
Let me guess, pharmacies?
Pfizer.
Oh, there you go. Wow.
Pfizer.
Yeah.
So do you think they're going to down talk? Do you think they're going to be objective about something that literally pays all of their bills?
All right.
They could tell everyone else they don't need the ads and they can be covered by Pfizer. A government, basically a company that the government gave our money to develop those shots for free. Right? Like, think about it. It all comes down to that.
It's evil.
Yeah, it's very evil.
Well, folks, you know, we're going to have to bring Marc back because he's a lot more interesting than I expected. Yeah, I thought I was going to
let the muscles fool you.
I was just going to grudge through this thing and go, holy crap, I'm just doing somebody a favor. I lost a bet. But no, I like him. But why? And I'll tell you why, because you're like a blue-collar patriot like me. We're just regular folks realizing we better just take care of ourselves because ain't nobody coming to, there ain't no cavalry left. It's going to be us. But the the regular folks started the Revolutionary War. It was just people saying, I will not be a slave. I will not be dictated to by a dictator. Not going to do it.
Over 2 cents of tea tax.
That's right, right. Well, just gave them an impetus to start something they needed to. I think they just kind of were saying, we might as well get this thing rolling so we can see how it's going to pan out, because otherwise we're going to always be stuck. But well, before I go, I do have subscribers, believe it or not. I think 3. And so for those 3 folks, and for somebody who wants to be number 4, I always have a special answer that is only for my subscribers that goes on the backside of bradstine.com. So you can join the Militia of the Mind, which are people like us who are going to outthink and outpray and outbelieve and act as free speakers, so that you can join us and we can see if maybe it could be a third great awakening in America and on this earth, frankly. But also join the mighty 10,000 of people that want to give me $3 a month and help us grow this and fight the good fight. But anyways, one of the benefits is you get special guest answers that only you get. But I think this would be helpful to people, just because it's heavy what we went to. So let's go to some that maybe will be a little less heavy and maybe more helpful. Talk to them quickly. What is, for those who are just finally going, you know what, I got to change my problem. I am out of shape. I'm overweight. I'm dying. Look at them and say, what would be the 3 steps to start to change your life in your health? Look right to the camera and tell them, so they can get their life. So they're sitting in bed, they don't know if they can do it, and you're going to teach them, nope, you're about to change today. What would you tell them?
Well, assuming they're starting from nothing.
Hey guys, I'm interrupting my own interview. If you want the answer that you haven't heard yet, go to bradstine.com and join one of the 3 tiers. It is the Militia of the Mind, it is the Warrior level, or it is the Special Forces. And then you'll get all kinds of special content and bonus answers to make you smarter than you could ever imagine. Go there now, jump on and join the mighty 10,000. And if you are an atheist, pray to Jesus. He was a little off on that one, but I'm going to throw in my point of view just for you folks.
Sure,
but I understand what you're getting at. Well, listen, you're Jewish, so you should be proud. You gave us a nice, a clever guide.
You're welcome. Yeah.
But anyways, well, listen, as we're heading out of this, and we will do it again if you will grant me the privilege. But on the way out, how can they see your podcast, see your supplements? How can people get to know you more? Because the people that watch me care about these guests because they realize you're helping impact their life to be proactive and change who they are. So again, go to them. How do we get to know what you are about as we move on for them to help you in your endeavors?
So if you are going to buy nutritional supplements, I own a site called tigerfitness.com. I always tell people, shop with companies that love you, that don't hate you. So tigerfitness.com is my site. Within that, I own brands called Ambrosia, MTS Nutrition, Pump Chasers, and the Outright Bar. So those are all my brands. So shop within there. On YouTube, I think the most applicable is we actually first time we put it on YouTube because we censored it a little for X and Rumble. Just get on YouTube. It's youtube.com/@. You have to put an @ now. They don't have URLs anymore. Evening Rants. One word, Evening Rants. And that's myself, partner Alan Roberts. We just rant about current events, politics, topics, some fitness stuff, and should be a good time. Also, another one is @Lobliner TV. And then all social media, X, Instagram, @Marc Lobliner, MarcLobliner.
Well, thanks, Mark. You know, folks, again, I'm kind of speaking the same thing I've said about 20 times so far, but it's blue collar, folks. It's regular, pull yourself up by your bootstraps type of Americans. This is our only chance. It's really our only chance to remain free is regular folks act like regular folks. Here's the key. Here's the truth. If day one, when they said, close your business and put on a mask, we said, we're not, we would have remained just like we were. Nobody would have gotten less sick. We actually would have had less sick people because you would have had herd immunity. We would have been free. Economy would have been robust. We would have just killed it. But when you're fearful, when you live in fear, when you live in concern over things you can't control, and more importantly, you're a coward, then you are the worst of humanity. And you don't want to be that. And I know it's hard. And if you did make that mistake, here's the good news. I'm a Christian. You can repent and say, that will never happen again, not this next round. And that's okay. Now you've learned a valuable lesson. And we all have a lot to learn from each other, but most importantly, we need to be Americans, which means standing up for the values that got this thing started. Remember, If somebody says you're being politically incorrect, always say thank you for the compliment. You never, ever want to give 1 inch to cultural Marxism and what is destroying America, because this is what it means to remain free. It hurts. It costs you something, and it should, because a lot of people died for us to sit here and talk like this right now. It's your turn. Jump in. And remember, I'm just a comic on Brad Stine Has Issues, but I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And what is that? You know. I'm just putting the woke back to sleep. See you next Monday.